Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Zenaida stood in the doorway of her bedroom in their Harlem brownstone, her hands gripping the frame so hard her knuckles turned gray beneath her brown skin. The afternoon light coming through the curtains painted everything gold, but all she could see was red. Red lipstick on the collar of Marcus's white shirt thrown across the chair, red nail polish on the champagne glass sitting on her nightstand, red rage flooding her vision as she stared at the unmade bed she'd smoothed that morning before leaving for her shift at Mount Sinai Hospital. She was 30 years old, a surgical nurse with steady hands and a breaking heart, and the man she'd loved since she was 17 had just turned their sacred space into a crime scene. The house smelled wrong. Not like Marcus's cedar cologne or her lavender candles, but like someone else's perfume, something cheap and too sweet like cotton candy left in the sun. Zenaida's chest tightened as she walked deeper into the room, her white nursing shoes silent on the hardwood. There were 2 wine glasses on the dresser. 2. Marcus didn't even drink wine. He said it gave him headaches. But apparently, he drank it for her, whoever she was. Zenaida's stomach twisted as she spotted a gold hoop earring tangled in the sheets, the kind with the nameplate hanging from it. She picked it up with shaking fingers and read the engraving, Dominique. The name burned into her brain like a brand. She didn't know any Dominique, but Marcus clearly did. She heard the front door open downstairs, heard Marcus's heavy footsteps on the stairs, heard him humming some R&B song like he didn't have a care in the world. Zenaida's body went cold and hot at the same time. Part of her wanted to run, to disappear before he reached the top of the stairs, to pretend she'd never seen any of this. But another part, the part that had worked double shifts to help pay off his car, the part that had defended him to her mother who never trusted him, the part that had sacrificed her dream of going back to school so he could start his construction business. That part wanted to watch his face when he realized he'd been caught. She stood in the center of the room, the earring clutched in her fist, and waited. Marcus appeared in the doorway, still in his work jeans and Timberlands, dust from the construction site still on his brown skin. He was smiling until he saw her face. Then his expression shifted. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that looked almost like relief. "Z, baby, you're home early," he said, and his voice was so calm it made her want to scream. He didn't even try to hide it, didn't rush to explain or apologize, just stood there like he'd been waiting for this moment, like he was tired of sneaking around and ready for the explosion. Zenaida held up the earring and his eyes followed it like a man watching his own execution. "Who is Dominique?" Her voice came out steady, cold, surgical. Marcus's jaw tightened. He stepped into the room and she stepped back, maintaining the distance between them like it was a barrier that could protect her heart from shattering any further. "Z, listen," he started, but she cut him off with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "Don't you dare tell me to listen. I've been listening to you for 13 years. I listened when you said you needed to work late. I listened when you said the business was struggling and we couldn't afford for me to take that position in California. I listened when you promised me we'd start trying for a baby next year, and the year after that, and the year after that." Her voice rose with each word until she was shouting, and Marcus just stood there, taking it, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "I'm not in love with you anymore, Z. I haven't been for a while." The first time Zenaida saw Marcus, she was 17 and standing outside her high school in the Bronx, waiting for her mother to pick her up after theater practice. He pulled up in a burgundy Chevy with music thumping so loud she felt it in her chest. And when he stepped out, she thought he looked like every warning her mother had ever given her. Tall, dark brown skin, waves in his hair so perfect they looked painted on, gold chain catching the streetlight. He was 21 and working construction with his uncle. and he looked at her like she was something precious he wanted to protect. "You need a ride, Shorty?" he'd asked, and she should have said no. Should have waited for her mama, but something about the way he smiled made her feel seen in a way she'd never felt before. Their relationship moved fast. Too fast, her mother Loretta said. But Zenaida didn't care. Marcus made her feel like she was the only girl in the world. He'd pick her up from her part-time job at the pharmacy and take her to diners in Manhattan where he'd order too much food and make her laugh until her stomach hurt. He met her mother exactly twice before Loretta decided she didn't like him. "That boy got secrets in his eyes," Loretta had said one night while braiding Zenaida's hair in their cramped apartment in the Patterson houses. "He smiled too easy for a man who worked that hard. Something ain't right." But Zenaida defended him, said her mother was just being overprotective, said Marcus was different, said he was her future. By the time Zenaida turned 19, she and Marcus had moved into a small apartment in Harlem. She was working as a nursing assistant and taking classes at Borough of Manhattan Community College, and Marcus's construction business was starting to take off. They weren't rich, but they were happy, or at least she thought they were. Marcus would come home covered in concrete dust and collapse on their thrift store couch, and she'd bring him iced tea and rub his shoulders while he told her about the buildings he was working on, the contracts he was chasing, the empire he was going to build for them. She believed every word. She believed in him more than she believed in herself, but there were signs she ignored, late nights that became later, phone calls he'd take in the bathroom with the shower running, receipts for restaurants she'd never been to. Once she found a birthday card in his jacket pocket signed "Love Always T" with hearts drawn around the edges. When she asked about it, Marcus said it was from his cousin Tamika, and she believed him because she wanted to, because believing him was easier than facing the truth that the man she'd built her life around might be building a separate life without her. She pushed the doubt down deep and focused on her studies, her work, their future. She told herself that love meant trust, and trust meant not asking too many questions. The years blurred together, 21, 23, 25. They moved into the brownstone when she was 27. A fixer-upper Marcus said he'd renovate himself. She worked double shifts to cover the mortgage while he poured money into the business. She stopped talking to some of her friends because they said Marcus was taking advantage of her. She stopped going to family dinners because her mother's disapproving looks made her feel defensive. She made herself smaller and smaller, carving away pieces of herself to make room for his dreams, his plans, his timeline. And then she turned 30, and she came home early from her shift, and she found the earring tangled in sheets that still smelled like betrayal, and everything she'd built came crashing down. Zenaida moved out that same night. She threw clothes into garbage bags while Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, watching her with this tired expression like he was relieved it was finally over. He didn't beg her to stay, didn't cry or make promises, just sat there like a man who'd already checked out months ago and was waiting for her to catch up. "Where are you gonna go?" he asked when she dragged the last bag toward the door. She turned and looked at him, really looked at him, and realized she didn't know this man at all. 13 years, and he was a stranger. "Away from you," she said, and walked out of the brownstone into the humid July night, her heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape her chest. She showed up at her mother's apartment in the Patterson houses at midnight, bags in hand and mascara streaked down her face. Loretta opened the door in her nightgown and didn't say "I told you so," didn't lecture or judge, just pulled her daughter inside, made her a cup of chamomile tea with too much honey, and let her cry on the plastic-covered couch until the sun came up. "Baby girl, some men ain't built to stay," Loretta said, stroking Zenaida's hair like she was 7 years old again. "They love you best when they chasing you. Soon as they catch you, they get bored and start looking around for the next thing to chase." Zenaida wanted to argue, wanted to defend Marcus one more time, but the words wouldn't come. All she could do was cry and wonder how she'd been so blind. The divorce was quick and brutal. Marcus didn't fight for the house or the furniture or anything they'd built together. He signed the papers at a Starbucks in Midtown, sliding them across the table like he was closing a business deal, not ending a marriage. Zenaida's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the pen. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she said. And Marcus looked at her with something that might have been regret or might have been relief. She couldn't tell anymore. "I hope you do too, Z," he said. And then he walked out of the coffee shop and out of her life. And she sat there for 20 minutes staring at her signature on the dissolution papers, wondering how 13 years could disappear so fast. She threw herself into work after that. Picked up every extra shift she could get at Mount Sinai, covered holidays and weekends, volunteered for the hardest cases because staying busy meant she didn't have time to think about Marcus or Dominique or the life she'd imagined that never materialized. Her coworkers started calling her the Iron Nurse because nothing seemed to shake her. Not the trauma cases or the codes or the families crying in the hallways, but inside, she was still that girl standing in the bedroom doorway, holding an earring and watching her world collapse. She just got better at hiding it. She built walls so high and thick that nobody could see the ruins inside. Years passed. Zenaida turned 35, then 40. She moved into a small apartment in Washington Heights with a view of the George Washington Bridge and plants on every windowsill. She took online classes and got her BSN, then her master's in nursing. She traveled Jamaica, Ghana, Portugal, places she'd always wanted to see but never could because Marcus said they needed to save money for the business. She dated occasionally, but never seriously, never let anyone close enough to hurt her again. And she didn't hear from Marcus, not a call, not a text, not a birthday card. It was like he'd never existed, like those 13 years were just a dream she'd had and woken up from, until 25 years after that awful day in July, her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize, and everything changed again. Zenaida was 55 years old and sitting in her favorite armchair by the window, reading a mystery novel and sipping wine when her phone buzzed on the side table. She almost didn't answer. It was 9:30 on a Friday night and she didn't recognize the number, but something made her pick up. "Hello?" Her voice was cautious. There was a long pause, then a man's voice, rough and unfamiliar. "Zenaida, it's Marcus." She froze. 25 years of silence, and suddenly he was calling her like no time had passed at all. Her first instinct was to hang up. Her second was to curse him out, but curiosity won. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone cold enough to frost glass. Marcus's voice cracked. "I need your help, Z. I'm sick, real sick." Zenaida's grip tightened on the phone. Part of her wanted to laugh. Part of her wanted to scream. This man had destroyed her, had walked away without a backward glance, and now he was calling because he needed something. "Call someone else," she said flatly. "I'm sure Dominique would love to help." There was another long pause. "Dominique left me years ago. Took my money and moved to Atlanta with some personal trainer. I ain't got nobody, Z. My mama passed. My sister won't talk to me, and I don't have health insurance anymore. The doctors say I got kidney disease. Stage 4. I need dialysis 3 times a week, and I can barely afford that, let alone..." He broke off, coughing so hard she could hear the rasp in his lungs through the phone. Zenaida closed her eyes. She should hang up, should block his number, and forget this conversation ever happened. But despite everything, despite the betrayal and the heartbreak and the wasted years, she couldn't quite shut off the part of her that was a nurse, the part that heard pain and automatically wanted to fix it. "Why are you calling me?" she asked quietly. "Because you the only person I ever knew who had a good heart," Marcus said, and his voice was so broken she almost believed he meant it. "I know I got no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did to you, but I'm scared, Z. I'm dying, and I don't want to die alone in some hospital room with nurses who don't know my name." You should have thought about that 25 years ago, Zenaida said. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew she wasn't going to hang up. Not yet. Marcus started talking faster, like he sensed her hesitation and wanted to fill the silence before she could change her mind. I'm living in a studio in the South Bronx. It's small, but it's clean. I can't work no more, and the fatigue is too bad. And my disability check barely covers rent. I ain't asking you to take care of me full time. I just need someone to check on me, make sure I take my meds, maybe drive me to dialysis once in a while. I'll pay you back somehow. I swear I will. Zenaida laughed, odor sound that echoed in her quiet apartment. How are you gonna pay me back when you can't even afford your own medical bills? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was so soft she almost didn't hear him. I ain't got money, Z, but I got time. And however much I got left, I want to spend it making things right with you. I know I can't fix what I did. I know I can't give you back those years. But maybe if you let me, I can show you that I'm sorry, that I know how bad I messed up. Zenaida felt tears prick her eyes, and she hated herself for it. Hated that after everything, this man could still make her feel something. I'll think about it, she said, and before he could respond, she hung up. Zenaida told herself she wasn't going to see him, told herself for 3 days straight while she went to work, watered her plants, and pretended Marcus's call had knocked something loose in her chest. But on the 4th day, she woke up and knew she couldn't move forward without closure, without seeing for herself what had become of the man who'd once been her entire world. So she got in her silver Honda Accord and drove to the address Marcus had texted her, a rundown building on the corner of 149th and Morris in the South Bronx. The neighborhood looked rough. Graffiti on the walls, broken glass on the sidewalks, groups of young men standing on corners watching her drive past with hard eyes. She found his building, a 5-story walk-up with a busted front door and mailboxes hanging open like broken jaws. The hallway smelled like urine and weed and something rotten she didn't want to identify. She climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, her heart pounding harder with each step, and knocked on apartment 3C. The door opened, and for a moment she didn't recognize the man standing there. Marcus had always been big, broad shoulders, thick arms, solid like the buildings he used to construct. But the person in the doorway was thin, almost fragile, with gray in his beard and deep circles under his eyes. He looked like someone had taken the Marcus she remembered and hollowed him out, leaving only the shell. Z, he said, and his voice was hoarse with emotion. You came. She didn't respond, just pushed past him into the tiny studio apartment. It was exactly what he described. Small, clean, sparse. A twin bed in one corner, a kitchenette with a hot plate and a mini fridge, a card table with 2 folding chairs. Medical supplies were stacked on a shelf, pill bottles, syringes, boxes of gauze. A dialysis catheter poked out from beneath his shirt collar, and she could see the bandage covering the access site. This was what his life had become. This cramped, lonely space that smelled like antiseptic and desperation. She turned to face him, and he was watching her with those same eyes that had made her fall in love at 17, except now they were full of pain and regret. Why did you really call me? She asked. Marcus sat down heavily on the edge of his bed, like standing took too much energy. I told you, I need help. Zenaida crossed her arms. You got doctors, you got social workers, you don't need me. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. I need you because I owe you. Because every night for the last 25 years, I've been lying awake thinking about what I did to you. About how I threw away the best thing I ever had because I was stupid and selfish and too damn proud to appreciate what I had until it was gone. His voice cracked. Dominique left me after 5 years. Said I was boring. Said I talked about you too much. Every woman I've been with since, I compared to you and they all come up short. You were the one, Z. You were always the one, and I was too blind to see it. Zenaida felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. Part of her wanted to believe him, wanted to take comfort in knowing that he'd suffered too, that she wasn't the only one carrying scars from that July day. But another part, the part that had survived and thrived without him, knew that regret didn't erase history. "You don't get to do this," she said, her voice shaking. "You don't get to call me after 25 years and dump your guilt on me like it's my job to make you feel better about what you did." Marcus looked up at her, and there were tears in his eyes. "I ain't asking you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve that. I'm just asking for a chance to show you that I'm not that man anymore, that I learned, that I grew up. Please, Z, please don't walk away again." Zenaida left Marcus's apartment without making any promises. She drove back to Washington Heights in a daze, her mind spinning with memories she'd spent years trying to forget. That night, she sat in her favorite chair by the window and called her best friend Rochelle, a fellow nurse she'd met during her master's program. "Girl, you sound stressed," Rochelle said as soon as she answered. "What's wrong?" Zenaida told her everything, the call, the visit, Marcus's plea. When she finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Finally, Rochelle spoke. "Z, you don't owe that man nothing. He made his choices. Let him live with them." But even as Rochelle said it, Zenaida knew it wasn't that simple. She thought about it for days, thought about karma and forgiveness, and whether holding on to anger for 25 years had actually protected her or just kept her prisoner. She thought about the Hippocratic oath she'd taken as a nurse. First, do no harm, and whether turning her back on someone who was dying violated that oath, even if that someone had once broken her heart. She thought about who she wanted to be. The woman who held grudges until they turned to stone in her chest, or the woman who was strong enough to choose grace over revenge. The decision exhausted her, but somewhere between the 4th and 5th day, she realized she'd already made it. She was going to help him, not because he deserved it, but because she did. She called Marcus on a Sunday afternoon. "I'll help you," she said without preamble, "but we're setting ground rules. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm not your friend. I'm your nurse, and that's it. I'll check on you twice a week, make sure you're taking your meds, drive you to dialysis when you need it. But the second you cross the line, the second you make this about anything other than your health, I'm done. You understand?" Marcus's relief was palpable, even through the phone. "I understand. Thank you, Z. I swear you won't regret this." She wanted to tell him she already regretted it, but instead she said, "I'll see you Tuesday," and hung up before he could say anything else. Tuesday came, and Zenaida showed up at Marcus's apartment at noon with a blood pressure cuff, a glucose monitor, and a list of questions about his symptoms. She kept it professional, clinical, checking his vitals, and reviewing his medication schedule like he was any other patient. Marcus watched her work with this look on his face, soft, almost reverent, and it made her uncomfortable. "Stop looking at me like that," she said, without glancing up from her notes. "Like what?" he asked. "Like I'm some kind of saint. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do." Marcus nodded slowly. I know, but I'm still grateful." Zenaida packed up her supplies and headed for the door. "Take your Lasix at 6 tonight and drink more water. Your blood pressure is too high." Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Zenaida would visit Marcus on Tuesdays and Fridays, check his vitals, organize his medications, and make sure he was eating enough. She drove him to dialysis on Wednesdays, waiting in the clinic's sterile waiting room while machines cleaned his blood. She didn't talk much during these visits, kept everything focused on his health, his symptoms, his treatment plan. But slowly, against her will, she started noticing things. The way he never complained, even when she could see pain written all over his face. The way he kept his apartment spotless, like he was trying to prove he was worth her time. The way he always said thank you, even for the smallest things. It didn't erase what he'd done, but it made her wonder if people could really change, or if they just got better at hiding who they'd always been. One Friday in October, Zenaida arrived at Marcus's apartment to find him on the floor. He'd collapsed trying to get to the bathroom, too weak to pull himself back up. Panic shot through her as she dropped her bag and knelt beside him. "Marcus, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. "I'm okay," he mumbled. "Just got dizzy." She checked his pulse, weak and thready, and his skin was clammy to the touch. She pulled out her phone and called 911, her training kicking in even as her hands shook. The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes, and she rode with him to Lincoln Hospital, holding his hand in the back of the ambulance while paramedics worked around her. She told herself it was just instinct, just her being a nurse, but deep down she knew it was more than that. At the hospital, doctors stabilized Marcus and admitted him for observation. His potassium levels were dangerously high, and he was severely dehydrated. Zenaida stayed in his room long after visiting hours ended, watching monitors beep and drip and flash numbers that told the story of a body shutting down. Around midnight, Marcus woke up. He looked over at her, surprised. "You're still here?" Zenaida shrugged. "Someone needs to make sure you don't die before morning." Marcus smiled weakly. "Still got that sharp tongue." She didn't smile back. "This is serious, Marcus. You're not taking care of yourself. You're skipping dialysis sessions. You're not drinking no water. If you keep this up, you'll be dead in 6 months." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "Maybe that's what I deserve." Zenaida's head snapped up. "Don't talk like that." Marcus turned his face toward the window where the glow of the city reflected off the glass. "I spent 25 years chasing things that didn't matter. Money, women, respect from people who didn't even know me. And for what? I lost you. I lost my business. I lost my health. I got nothing to show for my life except regrets and hospital bills." Tears ran down his face, and Zenaida felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd kept locked and guarded for a quarter of a century. And she stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the Bronx stretching below them, lights and streets and lives intersecting in ways none of them could predict. "You want to know why I'm really helping you?" she asked quietly. Marcus didn't answer, but she knew he was listening. "I'm helping you because holding on to hate was killing me too. Not as fast as kidney disease, but just as sure. I wasted years being angry at you. Years I could have spent building something real with someone who actually deserved me. But I didn't. I kept myself closed off because I was scared of getting hurt again. And then you called and I realized if I turned my back on you, if I let you die alone, I'd be letting you win. I'd be proving that you broke me, and I refused to give you that power." She turned to face him, and Marcus was staring at her like she'd just said the most profound thing he'd ever heard. "I didn't break you, Z," he said hoarsely. "You the strongest woman I ever met. You survived me. You built a whole life without me. That ain't broken. That's unbreakable." Zenaida wiped her eyes quickly, angry at herself for crying in front of him. "Then stop trying to die and fight. You owe me that much. You owe yourself that much." Marcus nodded, fresh tears streaming down his face. "Okay, I'll fight." That night, Zenaida slept in the chair beside his bed, her hand resting on the rail between them, and for the first time in 25 years, she let herself remember what it felt like to care about him without shame. Marcus was discharged from the hospital after 3 days with strict instructions to attend all his dialysis sessions and follow up with his nephrologist. Zenaida increased her visits to 3 times a week, bringing him groceries and cooking meals he could freeze and reheat. She showed him how to track his fluid intake and monitor his symptoms. Slowly, his color improved. He started gaining weight. He started smiling more. And he started talking. Really talking, about the years they'd been apart, about the choices he'd made, and the consequences he'd lived with. The conversations were uncomfortable at first, but necessary, like lancing a wound to let the poison out. One evening in November, while Zenaida was making him dinner, baked chicken with green beans and brown rice, Marcus said something that stopped her cold. "I need to tell you the truth about Dominique." Zenaida's hand stilled on the spoon she was using to stir the rice. "I don't need to hear about her." Marcus shook his head. "You do, because I've been lying about when it started." Zenaida turned to face him, her stomach twisting. Marcus looked down at his hands. "It didn't start the month before you found out. It started 2 years before that, when you were 28 and working all those double shifts to save for the house." The room tilted. Zenaida gripped the counter to steady herself. 2 years? Her voice came out strangled. Marcus nodded miserably. I met her at a bar after work. She was a waitress, young, 23. She didn't know nothing about construction or mortgages or real life. She laughed at my jokes and made me feel like I was somebody important. It was stupid and selfish, and I knew it was wrong, but I kept going back. I kept lying to you, kept taking your money, kept letting you sacrifice for a future I wasn't even committed to. Zenaida felt like she was going to be sick. "So everything, the house, the business, all those years, you were with her the whole time?" Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Z. I'm so goddamn sorry." Zenaida turned off the stove. With shaking hands, she wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to walk out and never come back. But instead, she just stood there, breathing through the rage and the pain and the betrayal that felt fresh, even though it was ancient. "Why are you telling me this now?" she finally asked. Marcus wiped his face. "Because you deserve the truth, all of it. Because I've been carrying that lie for 25 years and it's been eating me alive. And because if I'm going to die soon, I don't want to die with you thinking it was just one mistake. You need to know how bad I messed up so you can really move on." Zenaida laughed bitterly. "You think I haven't moved on?" Marcus looked at her with those sad, knowing eyes. "Have you? Because you 55 years old, Z? And you've been alone this whole time. Rochelle told me when I called her last month to see if she knew where you were. She said you don't date, don't let nobody close, don't trust nobody. That ain't moving on, that's hiding." Zenaida's breath caught. "You called Rochelle?" Marcus nodded. "She cursed me out for 20 minutes straight before she finally gave me your number. But she also said you deserved better than what I gave you. And she was right. You deserved a man who saw your value, who protected your heart, who built with you instead of taking from you. And I wasn't that man, but Z, I want to be now, even if it's too late, even if all I can do is be your patient and say thank you and tell you the truth. I want to be the man you should have had 25 years ago." Zenaida didn't visit Marcus for a week after that conversation. She needed space to process everything, the lies, the timeline, the realization that her entire marriage had been built on betrayal. She threw herself into work, picked up extra shifts, stayed late to avoid going home to her empty apartment where Marcus's confession echoed in her mind. Rochelle called her every day, but she didn't answer. Her mother called too, somehow sensing something was wrong, but Zenaida couldn't bring herself to explain. How could she tell anyone that the wound she thought had healed had just been ripped open again, deeper and rawer than before? On the 8th day, her phone rang at 3 a.m. It was Lincoln Hospital. Marcus had been brought in by ambulance, septic shock from an infected dialysis catheter. He was in the ICU, and the doctor's voice was grave when he said, "He's been asking for you." Zenaida hung up the phone and sat in the dark for a full minute, torn between staying in bed and getting dressed. Every logical part of her brain screamed to stay away, to protect herself, to let him face this alone like he'd left her to face everything alone. But she couldn't, despite everything, despite the lies and the pain and the wasted years. She couldn't let him die without saying goodbye. She arrived at the hospital at 4 a.m., still in her pajama pants and a hoodie, and followed a nurse to the ICU. Marcus was barely conscious, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped in urgent rhythm. His skin had a grayish tint, and his breathing was labored. When she walked into the room, his eyes opened slightly. "Z," he whispered. She pulled a chair close to the bed, her throat tight. "I'm here." Marcus's hand moved weakly toward hers, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. His fingers were cold. "I'm scared," he said, his voice cracking. "I know I don't got the right to ask, but please don't let me die alone." Zenaida's vision blurred with tears. She thought about 17-year-old her falling in love with a boy who promised her the world. She thought about 30-year-old her standing in a bedroom holding another woman's earring. She thought about 55-year-old her sitting in an ICU holding the hand of a dying man who destroyed her, and then, in his final chapter, forced her to confront everything she'd been running from. "You're not gonna die," she said firmly, even though she knew it was a lie. Marcus smiled faintly. "It's okay if I do. At least I gotta see you again. At least I gotta tell you the truth. At least I know you're gonna be okay." He coughed and blood flecked his lips. "Promise me something. Promise me you'll let somebody love you. For real this time." Zenaida wiped her face. Marcus stopped talking, but he kept going, his words coming faster now, like he was racing against time. "I stole your 20s and your 30s from you. Don't let me steal the rest. You deserve to be loved, right, Z? You deserve to have what we should have had. Kids, grandkids, somebody who wakes up every morning grateful you exist. Promise me you won't give up on that." Zenaida wanted to tell him to save his strength, to stop trying to fix things with deathbed confessions, but before she could speak, alarms started screaming. Doctors and nurses rushed into the room, pushing her aside. She watched from the corner as they worked on him, chest compressions, medications, defibrillator shocks that made his body jerk. After 20 minutes, the doctor called it. Marcus was gone, and Zenaida stood there, numb and shaking, holding the ghost of his hand in hers. The funeral was small, just Zenaida, Rochelle, Marcus's estranged sister Kenya, who flew in from Atlanta, and a handful of his old construction buddies who tracked down the obituary online. They buried him in a cemetery in the Bronx under a gray December sky that threatened snow. The pastor said words about redemption and forgiveness, and Zenaida stood at the graveside with her hands in her coat pockets, feeling nothing and everything at once. After everyone left, she stayed behind, staring at the fresh grave and the temporary marker that bore his name. "I hope you found peace," she whispered, "because I'm going to." Then she turned and walked away, and she didn't look back. In the months that followed, Zenaida did something she hadn't done in years. She started living for herself. She joined a salsa class in Washington Heights and discovered she still loved to dance. She took weekend trips to bookstores in Brooklyn and cafes in Queens. She reconnected with old friends from nursing school and started hosting dinner parties in her apartment. And one Saturday afternoon in March, while browsing a farmer's market in Union Square, she met a man named Terrence, a retired firefighter with kind eyes and a laugh that made her feel safe. He asked if she wanted to get coffee, and for the first time in 25 years, she said yes without hesitation. 6 months later, Zenaida was sitting in Terrence's kitchen in Bed-Stuy, watching him cook breakfast and listening to old school R&B on the radio. He moved around the kitchen with easy confidence, humming along to the music, and she felt something she hadn't felt in decades: joy. Not the fragile, temporary kind that could be shattered by betrayal, but the deep, steady kind that came from knowing she'd survived the worst and was still standing. Terrence brought her a plate of pancakes and kissed her forehead. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Zenaida smiled. "Just that I'm happy, really happy." Terrence grinned. "Good, you deserve it." And she realized he was right. She did deserve it. She always had. That evening, Zenaida went through old, boxes in her closet and found a photo from her wedding day. Her and Marcus young and smiling, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. She studied it for a long time, remembering who she'd been then, hopeful, naive, so sure that love was enough. She wasn't that girl anymore. Marcus's betrayal had cracked her open, but his death had forced her to put herself back together in a way that was stronger, wiser, more whole. She didn't forgive him, not completely, but she released him. She released the anger and the bitterness and the what-ifs that had kept her chained to the past. She tucked the photo back in the box and closed the lid. A year after Marcus died, Zenaida was standing in a church in Brooklyn wearing a cream-colored dress and holding a bouquet of lilies. Terrence stood at the altar in a navy suit, tears in his eyes as she walked toward him. Rochelle was her maid of honor, and her mother Loretta sat in the front row dabbing at her face with a tissue. They exchanged vows, promises about partnership and trust and showing up for each other every single day. And when the pastor said, "You may kiss your bride," and Terrence pulled her close, Zenaida felt it. The full circle moment, the closing of a 25-year wound, the beginning of something she'd stopped believing was possible. Marcus had asked her to let someone love her right, and she finally had. Not because he'd given her permission, but because she'd given it to herself. And that, she realized, was the greatest triumph of all,